hair's porosity is, in my opinion, one of the most important things to learn about your hair. In this video, I want to share with you some tips on different ways of taking care of your high porosity hair so that it is healthy. Hi everyone, welcome to the Nairobi Natural channel. My name is Nawekulo and I create natural hair content. Also, I have high porosity hair, and so I am familiar with some of the challenges that present themselves when you're working with this hair type. If you would like to know more about how to maintain high porosity, healthy hair, continue watching the video. Hair porosity is basically the ability of your hair to take in moisture and retain that moisture. I will leave a link in the description below of a video that I feel goes into much detail about this. It's by an amazing YouTuber called Glampam. In that video, he really gives great detail about hair porosity, the different kinds of hair porosity. So if that's something that you're interested in, click the link and it'll lead you to that video. But for purposes of this video, I think it's important to understand the basics. And the basic is just hair porosity is the ability of your hair to take in moisture and to retain that moisture. It's also important to note that your hair's porosity is determined by your hair's cuticle. So how raised or how lowered your hair's cuticle is will determine how high or how low your porosity is. There are three kinds of porosity. That's high porosity, medium or normal porosity, and low porosity. In this video, I will be focusing on high porosity hair. That's the hair that I have. It's the hair that I'm most familiar with, and so that is the hair porosity that I will be talking about. When it comes to high porosity, we are talking about a hair type where moisture readily comes into the hair, but moisture is also lost quite easily. This is because the cuticle is raised. When you look at your hair structure, the cuticle is the outermost layer, and it is the layer that protects the hair strand. It is the one that keeps it protected from external conditions, things like the weather. It's the one that allows moisture into the hair, and it's also the one that allows moisture out of the hair. When you're looking at high porosity hair, your cuticle is raised slightly, or for some people it's quite wide. For some people, depending on what kind of damage their hair has gone through, there are even parts where the cuticle is missing. In that situation, moisture readily gets into the hair strand, but it also readily gets out of the hair strand. And so this is a hair type that's more susceptible to things like dryness. There are different ways of identifying what kind of hair porosity you have. I have seen the water test, where you take a strand of your hair and you put it in water, and the idea behind it is that if your hair floats, it's low porosity. If it sinks, it's high porosity, and if it stays somewhere in the middle, it's medium or normal porosity. Personally, that's not the test that I used to find out my hair's porosity. I just looked at its characteristics and I realized, okay, yeah, my hair lies more towards the higher porosity than it does any other kind of porosity. So some of the things that I noticed were that when I went into the shower to wash my hair got wet very quickly, but it also dried very quickly. And so I was struggling to keep my hair moisturized. It would break a lot, it would tangle a lot. And then when I started to incorporate heavier products into my routine, I noticed that my hair was keeping the moisture a lot more, and it looked to have a lot more life in it. When I incorporated strength treatments, I also noticed even a bigger difference. So that's how I was able to realize, oh, okay, come I have high porosity hair. Well, so if you would like to know what kind of porosity you have, or if you have high porosity, maybe some questions or some of the things to look out for are: does your hair get wet very easily? Does it dry easily? Does it tangle easily? Do you find that you have to moisturize your hair a lot frequently, right? So maybe you find yourself in a situation where you have to moisturize like twice a day or 3 times a day because your hair is drying so fast. Those are things to look out for in case you suspect that you have high porosity hair, or you're not so sure what your hair porosity is. Those are just some things to pay attention to. So there are different things that cause high porosity. The first one is genetics. There's some people who are just born with hair that has or leans more towards higher porosity than others. Another cause is physical damage, and this usually occurs when you're handling your hair in a very rough way. So maybe combing it or brushing it in a very, very rough way. This can cause damage to the cuticle, which then can lead to having higher porosity hair. Another cause is chemical damage, and this occurs when you're looking at or when you're dealing with chemical processes that lead to your cuticle being lifted. And these are things like applying relaxers, dyeing your hair with bleach. These are some processes that require your cuticle to be lifted, and so then they will lead to your hair just being higher porosity. By virtue of what the process is, it's going to lead to your hair being higher porosity. So you can have a situation where your natural hair is of a lower porosity, but over time, having taken certain steps or having done certain things, it leads your hair to have higher porosity. Just like you can be born with hair that leans more towards higher porosity, but there are certain steps that you've taken that now have led it to act more like lower porosity hair. You're caring for it, and so then it acts more like lower porosity hair. Yeah. So these terms are not fixed. Your hair can move very easily between them. Some common issues that high porosity hair faces are dryness, breakage, and tangles. Dryness because moisture leaves your hair easily, and so it gets dry quickly. Breakage, dryness leads to breakage. Dryness leads to breakage. And tangling, because your cuticle is raised, it's easy for your hair to tangle. Your hair strands to tangle with each other, which leads to further breakage, right? So those are some of the common issues that high porosity hair faces: dryness, breakage, tangling. So you want to have healthy high porosity hair. There are 4 things I would suggest in terms of goals to try and achieve in order to keep your high porosity hair healthy. One of them is closing your cuticle. The second thing is keeping your hair moisturized. The third thing is strengthening your hair. And the fourth thing is making sure your hair is tangle free, or finding ways of dealing with the tangles in your hair. So when it comes to closing your cuticle, we know that your hair's porosity is determined by your cuticle. In the case of high porosity hair, your cuticle is raised. One of the key aims is to try and find ways of closing that cuticle or lowering it as much as possible. And this can be achieved in 2 ways. Number 1 is finding products that balance your pH. Your hair's natural pH tends to lie more towards the acidic side. So finding products that tend to be a little bit more acidic helps to balance the pH of the scalp, and therefore that helps to lower your cuticle. These products include things like apple cider vinegar, aloe vera juice. So you could decide to maybe make your own apple cider vinegar rinse, or adding aloe vera juice to maybe you make a hair mask using that as the liquid. That helps just balance your scalp pH. Or even coming up with a spritz where you use aloe vera juice. There's so many different ways of using these products, but essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to balance your scalp pH so that helps to lower your cuticle. The second thing that you can do to lower your cuticle is incorporating a cool final rinse. So on your wash days, your final rinse, what you can start doing is using cool water to have that final rinse. When you're rinsing your hair for the final time, is using some cool water, as this helps to lower your cuticle. So those are the 2 things when it comes to closing your cuticle I would recommend: finding products or using products that balance your scalp pH, and having your final rinse with cool water. One of the biggest issues with high porosity hair is retaining moisture. So what you're trying to do is get moisture, but more importantly, keep in the moisture that's in your hair. This can be done through several ways. Number 1 is to seal in the moisture. When you're done with your moisturizing, you've applied your moisturizing products onto your hair, go in and seal in that moisture with some kind of butter, hair grease, medium to heavy oils, so like avocado oil, olive oil, black Jamaican castor oil. I've found that one of the fun enough benefits of having high porosity hair is I can use heavier products without it weighing my hair down or experiencing a lot of buildup. So those products really help to just keep the moisture in, and it keeps my hair moisturized for much longer. Another thing I would recommend is just using thicker products when it comes to moisturizing your hair. I don't even pretend, let me tell you. When it comes to moisturizing my hair, I use thick products. I am a huge fan of the African Pride baobab oil leave-in to moisturize my hair. Things like the sheer moisture curl enhancing smoothie. I usually look for keywords like custard, butter, smoothie. Those keywords really stand out to me because usually it implies a product that's heavier, and so that means chances are it'll keep my hair moisturized for much longer. So just finding or using thicker moisturizing products makes a huge difference. Another thing that you can do is pre-pooing your hair. Pre-pooing is a wonderful way of helping your hair increase its ability to retain moisture. So you can do it a few hours before you wash your hair. Whatever works for you. It's all about finding the things that work for you. All of these things that I'm recommending, you don't have to do all of them. Just figure out the things that work for you. So yeah, pre-pooing your hair regularly makes a difference in terms of allowing your hair to retain moisture for longer. And the last thing I would recommend would be deep condition regularly. Deep condition your hair as regularly as you can. Personally, when my hair is open, I deep condition every week. And I usually alternate between a moisturizing deep conditioner and a protein deep conditioner. I'll talk about the protein in the next point, but I deep condition regularly. The purpose of having the deep conditioning step in your wash day is to just inject moisture back into your hair, so deep condition regularly. Incorporating strength treatments can help deal with some of the damage that's been caused to the cuticle. Like I mentioned before, one of the ways that your cuticle ends up being raised is through damage, whether it's physical damage or chemical damage, or sometimes it's even both, Whatever kind of damage it is, that damage done to the cuticle then leads to having higher porosity hair. When you incorporate strength treatments, protein treatments, these help to fill in any gaps that have been created within the cuticle because of damage, and so then that strengthens your hair. Also, your hair is made of protein. Those are building blocks for your hair. So finding ways of incorporating protein treatments into your routine helps to build up your hair. There are two ways of incorporating strength into your routine. Number one is protein treatments, and these you can do them as frequently as you need to. Like I mentioned before, when my hair is opened, I usually alternate between a moisturizing deep conditioner and a strength deep conditioner every week. Right? So I deep condition every week, and then let's say every 2 weeks I'm doing a moisturizing treatment, and every 2 weeks I'm doing some kind of strength treatment. I also I have a protein deep conditioner, I also have a protein conditioner, and a protein treatment. So I use the AFOG 2-step protein treatment. This is because my hair is dyed. So I try to find very many different ways of injecting protein into my hair regimen, into my hair routine. Another way of adding strength into your routine that's not necessarily protein is henna. Henna is not a protein, but it works in a similar way, in the sense that it'll fill in any gaps that have been made in the cuticle, and then it'll strengthen your hair. I will leave a link in the description for my henna hair mask recipe. It's quite fortifying, it's quite strengthening, but it's very effective. Henna can be quite strong, and so it's recommended that maybe when you want to start using it, you start using it more as a gloss. Maybe you take like a tablespoon or two and you put that into your deep conditioner, your moisturizing deep conditioner, and then work up to like a full-blown henna hair mask recipe. Personally, I went straight in when I started using henna. I went straight in for the henna hair mask recipe, and the difference was significant and very obvious for my hair. So it's a treatment that I incorporate religiously in my routine now. High porosity hair gets tangled very easily. Once again, because your cuticles are raised, it's easy for the hair strands to get locked together, right? Some of the ways that I would recommend in terms of keeping your hair tangle free or reducing the tangles, number one is keeping your hair stretched. Personally, I use heat. I use minimal heat to keep my hair stretched. You can use things like banding as well. If you're not comfortable using heat, you can band your hair. There are several tutorials on YouTube where they'll show you how to band your hair. But finding ways of keeping your hair stretched makes a huge difference. So stretch your hair before styling. Another thing is to just take your time. Take your time when you're detangling. High porosity hair tends to be very delicate, and so it requires time for you to just deal with the tangles as they come up. So those would be my two recommendations: keeping your hair stretched and taking your time when you're detangling. There are other things that I would recommend. One of them is minimal heat to no heat. So I know there are people who like to use heat in the hair. Fine, that's fine. Whatever floats your boat. Personally, I do use heat in my hair, but I use it sparingly. And I usually use it to just stretch my hair before a particular style. And what I would recommend when you are using heat is use some kind of heat protectant. I use the ORS heat protectant, and using low temperatures on whatever heating equipment you're using, whether that's a blow dry or those combs, whatever it is that you're using, I would recommend you using low temperatures, or the lowest temperature that you can on that particular device, and also just doing it sparingly. Don't do it all the time, but don't do it all the time. Space out the times between you using your heat. So that probably means finding other ways of stretching your hair. The next thing I would recommend is minimal to no dyeing. Once again, I dye my hair. I dye my hair, permanently dyeing my hair. And one of the things, because like I mentioned before, I do use heat. So when it comes to dyeing, I space out time between my retouch sessions. The last time I dyed my hair was April 2023. The next time I'll be dyeing my hair will be sometime in 2024. Yeah, so I like to do it like once, twice at most a year, just so that it gives my hair time to recover. You could also try semi-permanent hair color. That's less damaging than permanent hair dye. Henna also dyes hair, right? So if you're someone who maybe has gray hair and you're looking for something natural that's safe but also adds a bit of color into your hair, henna is a wonderful choice. So yeah, just finding different ways of still having fun with your hair, but in a safe way. The next thing I would say, pick your poison. Don't do everything at the same time. Don't dye your hair and then immediately go in and apply heat onto your hair, or apply heat onto your hair and then immediately go on to permanently dye. That's a lot of stress that you've put into your hair. So pick a poison and stick with it, or give enough time, give ample time in between whatever style or thing you want to do to your hair. So maybe this particular wash day, you use heat, and then the next one you're dyeing your hair, maybe give yourself like a month to like 6 weeks of having dyed hair before you introduce heat into your routine. And within that period, when you're taking a break between having dyed your hair and now using heat, make sure you're keeping up with your strength treatments. Your hair has time to recover before going in and doing something else to your hair. Don't bleach your hair and then immediately apply heat to your hair. Please. And the last thing I would say is avoid harsh cleansers. Harsh cleansers tend to raise your cuticle even higher, and so then that leads to you having even higher porosity. So avoid harsh cleansers. Find moisturizing shampoos or moisturizing cleansers that are effective but also gentle. All this to say, having high porosity hair doesn't then mean your hair is doomed. You can have high hair and very healthy hair. You can have high porosity dyed healthy hair. You can have high porosity hair that you usually use heat on that's still healthy. Like that, the having high porosity doesn't then mean that your hair is unhealthy. But it's important to now find ways of keeping your hair healthy. It's all about understanding how your hair is, what hair type you have, and then finding ways of caring for your hair that maintain its health, that boost its health. If you found this video useful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more hair related videos. And until next time, see ya!